Failure doesn't scare me as much as it did when I was a kid. I'm sure that must be a running answer for a lot of people. I mean, it's part of life, and you got to let it go. You can't let it ruin your day. Maybe your day, but not your week.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Wow, today's chat is a real treat. Jonathan's one of the coolest, most playful humans I've come across. This was a genuine thrill for me. He's a brilliant storyteller who's deep and reflective, plus he's very funny. All the tools for a brilliant chat. It's also really nice to hear someone talk about how grateful they are for their life. I love it and find it inspiring. Plenty of gems in this one. Okay, enough of me. Let's get into it. Jonathan Frakes is a prolific director, producer, and actor. He's best known to audiences for his portrayal as Commander William Riker on Star Trek The Next Generation. He has most recently returned to the Star Trek family by directing episodes of Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard, and Star Trek Strange New Worlds, as well as the new Leverage Redemption for Electric Entertainment on IMDB TV. He discovered his love and talent in directing during his 7 years starring on Star Trek Next Generation and ended up directing 8 episodes of the series and was also invited to direct episodes from the spin-off series Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager. His other directing roles include NCIS Los Angeles, The Orville, Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, Castle, Falling Skies, Leverage, The Glades, Burn Notice, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, Hit the Floor, amongst others. In addition, he was also a producing director for Season 3 and 4 of the hit show The Librarians and directed 2 movies within the Librarian franchise. The role of Commander William Riker has brought him worldwide fame, which has led to other acting roles in several television series, including NCIS Los Angeles, Angie Tribeca, Hit the Floor, Criminal Minds, and The Glades. Jonathan will also next be seen in the Hallmark movie A Biltmore Christmas. He's also appeared as the lead in the primetime soap Bare Essence and guest starred on several classic hit primetime series, including Charlie's Angels, Fantasy Island, and The Duke of Hazzard. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about directing and being in movie jail, Star Trek, Imposter Syndrome, Thunderbirds, gratitude, meditation, Christopher Reeves, acting, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, I'd love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. Actually, also, I just watched Superman, so this could be a funny place to start. I believe that you were a soap opera stand-in. Can you tell me about this? This is hilarious to me.
That's a great place to start. I did a production of Threepenny Opera at the Loeb Drama Center, which was in Cambridge. And Christopher Reeve played McKeith, and I played one of his sidekicks. And we became friends, sort of, and we went back to New York, and he was just becoming Christopher Reeve, pre-Superman. So we became friends, and he had asked me to stand in, or offered, because he was doing a play called Matter of Gravity with Katharine Hepburn, or Let Us in Love, Matter of Gravity. And he was out of town before it opened on Broadway. So I went to his rehearsals down at CBS on 11th Avenue. And then I talked to him at night from the hotel, and I'd give him the blocking and any script changes that he had. And then he'd come in for his day of shooting, and then he'd go back out. I guess they had his schedule worked out so he could go back and forth. And I remember distinctly one day I was laying on the floor with fake snow that was actually fiberglass that on OSHA, we would never be inhaling that shit today, but this is 1970, yeah, or 1975 probably. So we became sort of friends, and he He's a very he was a rich kid. He had an airplane,
As you do.
and as you do, as one does. And he said, "Do you want to come fly with me, and I'll take you to lunch?" So we go to Teterboro Airport, which is in New Jersey, outside of the city, and we got in this airplane. We flew to Poughkeepsie, which is another silly little town in upstate New York where Vassar is. And we had lunch, and at the end of lunch, this being the 70s, he called. He went to the payphone and checked in because he got a message on his beeper. This is when we had beepers.
Of course,
You're not old enough to remember beepers, right?
Yeah.
A beeper was a thing in the 70s. So makes a phone call, comes back to the place where we're having lunch at the airport in Teterboro, and he says, "I just got the role of Superman."
Crazy.
And it changed his whole life. And he was the best Superman.
Oh, controversial. Have you seen the latest one?
No, but I can't wait. I feel like I should have been there earlier because everybody says it's fabulous. I know. I just listened to Gunn. What's the director's name? Gunn on the.
Yeah, I had his brother Sean Gunn on.
Yeah, the actor.
Yep.
Yeah, he was just on the other podcast, Smartless. He was on today, I think, or last week, talking about the new Superman. Everybody loved it.
It's very good. I enjoyed it. Is it the best Superman? I feel like you need a few movies before you can be in that conversation, but he was brilliant.
It's like the best Batman. I will always love Michael Keaton, no matter who plays Batman.
Fair. That's your OG. I've got so many questions about this because I also do screenwriting and I've been on set very few times. But when you said that you would tell him about script changes, isn't that very rare for a stand-in to like give the debrief to Christopher Reeves or an actor? Isn't that normally the director? Like this seems like a very bizarre.
Oh no, I was there to do the rehearsal. So they would rehearse the night before, or they would rehearse the day before his scenes.
Yep.
So I literally was his stand-in. And any script changes they gave to me because they knew I was standing. It was a very unusual situation on a soap. You don't have this character. I was that character that because he was becoming a star and still had a contract at Love of Life, that he was he was doing a Broadway show with Katharine Hepburn. He was about to become Superman, and he was a star of the soap. So
wow,
it was a very I haven't seen that. I'm married to Jeannie Francis, who's on a soap called General Hospital, and she's no, that role of stand-in, nobody stands in for anybody on this. They don't even get a chair on a soap to sit down. I'm serious.
They're brutal.
They never leave the set.
Yeah. And it's like 20 pages of dialogue in like 5 minutes. And
exactly. I've seen yesterday's work for her was 88 pages she was in because it was a memorial service and she spoke on about 32 of them. So it was I can't even imagine.
Okay, please. Okay. I have anxiety hearing this. I've written close to 10 screenplays and I want to insert myself for a few scenes and I'm even nervous about like 4 or 5 lines, but to have 30...
And you will have written them and you know what the fucking words are. You
exactly. How?
Yeah.
I know that we'll talk about how she's helped you when you came back into Star Trek with some advice, but that is the craziest skill. I have full-blown anxiety for her, but I know that she can.
Well, she's been doing it since she was 13, which was part of it. So that weird muscle, I mean, other actors can't believe how fast she can learn lines and retain them. And then spit up when she's really busy, she'll spit them out, perform them, get home that night, and they're gone, and we have to put 30 new pages in. It's a skill. And I've known her for 40 years. I've been in love with this woman for 40 years.
Oh, that's nice.
And I continue to be enamored of that quirk, that skill set. Because I get nervous learning a day's work, 5-6 pages of dialogue. I'm a nervous wreck to make sure I got it, especially as I get older.
And why is that? Have you always been like that, or has it been?
No, I used to be a very quick study, and then they don't go in as fast. Especially, it also depends on the writing. On the soap, they're kind of loosey-goosey. If you're telling the story and she's playing a character she's obviously known forever, so she knows how the character behaves and she knows the relationship with all the. So on a soap opera, the bar, according to Jeannie, is you have to say fuck or you have to completely walk off the stage for them to cut.
I've had quite a few actors. Yeah, okay, go.
That's the only way they'll cut on a soap.
And is it just one take typically?
Oh yeah. And when Jeannie was doing it with Tony, when she was Luke and Laura, they were so proficient. They would record the dress rehearsal, which they do, and then sometimes the producer would just keep it because it was gold because the
Wow.
chemistry was so good.
I'm in awe of your wife. That's a crazy
I am
skill.
too.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that after all these years. Have you always been good with lines? Like when you would maybe like theater or something, did you ever like forget your lines?
Rarely. I was always pretty good at lines. I was pretty lucky. And one of the I remember doing Misalliance, a Shaw play again at the Loeb, and I was one of the kids there was a professional company. They had some journeyman actors in it, and this old experienced Canadian actor dried, went up, and instead of working his way up, he indicated to me like this, like it's your fucking line. I thought, wow, what a horrible, unprofessional. What kind of acting? What about acting fellowship?
Throwing you out of the bus? That's
Under the
amazing.
bus, and I was a kid. I thought, oh my God, why don't you go to the stage manager? I mean,
Oh,
or say I'm sorry, or we'll find our way back. Because when you go up and the other actor knows you go up, sometimes you can help each other out. But to throw this, I'll never forget it as long as I live.
I hope that you remember that when you've been an actor and when you've been direct or when you direct, that you can see when someone's lost. Because I did improv for a few years, and the rule is you always make your scene partner look good. And
Yes, and then, yeah, and the people that do improv well, I do. I work with Tawny Newsome and Jack Quaid, who are on Lower Decks, and they did a crossover onto Strange New Worlds,
yeah.
and they were so proficient and so when improv actors are good, they're just, and that skill set goes with them, that they can bring it to Shakespeare or contemporary plays or a shitty script they can make better. I mean, it's the good ones are really well.
I've had some master improv people on the podcast. I'm definitely not even remotely that competent at improv, but I think it's a great skill. But when it's bad, it is hilarious.
When it's bad, it's horrid.
Yeah. Horrid is my favorite word, by the way. I love it. And were you good with improv? I believe, like for
No, I wasn't, and I'm not, and nor am I good at writing. And people always mistake me. They say, "Oh, you wrote that?" I said, "No, no, I don't. I don't write any of that. I can edit. I can see where it's too fat, or I can see where it's unclear. But a blank page. So you write and you do improv and you run this podcast.
I know I'm a
And
man
what
of
else?
every talent.
Every time.
I've got, and I
You
used to
sing
be
and
an
dance?
accountant, but a terrible one. So
No,
yeah,
that's
that's
a bad thing to be bad at.
I know there might be a lot of skills. I never said I was necessarily good at them.
God.
I know. I'm in awe
And
of all
you've
the
you've
stuff.
done you've done 300 of these.
Yeah, crazy.
It is crazy.
I know. I'm blown every single time I do this podcast. I'm like surprised to see the guest. It blows my mind that I'm able to do it. When you rocked up, I'm like, oh my God, it's actually happening. I have the same reaction to every single podcast.
Well, that's keeps it fresh at least.
Oh, I love it. I love what I do. This is a real blessing. But I want to hear more about your blessings. I want to type the Christopher Reeves thing because your life changes quite quickly afterwards as well. But I'll ask one more story about that. I believe at the time, we're all struggling actors. You may have not been struggling actor at the time, but he asked you to help move things
His
for him.
girlfriend moved. No, his girlfriend. I helped him move his girlfriend.
Okay.
Yes, there's two more parts of the story which I didn't share, but you've obviously already heard. One was I moved an actress who by the way, I cast in Insurrection many years later, who was his then girlfriend. And the other was he invited me to the opening night of Matter of Gravity. And opening nights in Broadway are at Sardi's. And at the big table, who was I seated between? His not amicably divorced mother and father.
You can't make a story like that up.
So I was not only standing in, I was standing in for
Okay.
two characters. And that's as far as I'm going to go on Christopher Reeve. May he rest in peace.
That's fine. Can I ask one question on that? I know you said you don't write, but just that scene in itself is an episode of TV.
Well, it's sort of it's like a Curb Your Enthusiasm or one of those. Yeah.
One of the scripts that I'm writing is got like, it's like a millennial version of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and stories like that is what I crave. People come up to me at the coffee shops. My wife's friends will just message me or voice note me stupid stories like, I'm using that. Can I use that?
Yes, it's the best. It's my daughter's a playwright, and she writes very wonderful, ironic, personal, but kind of off. And whenever stuff is offbeat or sort of strangely disconnected, but it's often based in truth or fact. And I get it. I get it.
Those are the
people
best.
Like it.
Yeah.
And people understand it.
Especially when you think it's relatively real, you can tell it's exaggerated. Like, I can see myself in it. It changes, it transforms it. It's not fake.
Also, there's something about telling real stories that when they ring true, even though it seems so absurd or so out of the realm for certain people, I guess that's possible. I guess that, and then they feel like they've got a secret.
Exactly.
They've shared a secret.
I know that with, I've heard, because I studied Seinfeld to get into screenwriting, and Jason Alexander didn't believe that the character he was playing was real. And then Larry's like, what do you mean? That happened to me last week. And then that just changed his character for him. Oh, that would have been a joy. And so you're in New York. I believe you're in a production at the time and it ended or something happened. What brought you to LA? Because I feel like that was quite a pivotal move for you.
I think my contract on the Doctors, I was on a soap called I thought I had died and gone to heaven by the time. In New York, I'd gotten a couple of regional theater jobs that were fantastic. I did an off-Broadway show called The Hairy Ape that moved to off-Broadway. I replaced someone in Shenandoah, which was a Broadway musical that I had been in.
Cool.
At a summer stock theater with the lead. Anyway, so at one point, I was living in an apartment in the Village, and I had, which cost $181 a month, by the way.
Oh, jealous.
And I had, I was a regular on a soap opera called The Doctors, and I was in a Broadway show called Shenandoah. And I was not married, and I had gone from I worked for the unfortunately titled moving company, especially in New York, The Walk-Up King and His Trustworthy Stepbrothers. So we made $5 an hour, $6 if you drove the truck. So, but when my soap opera contract ended, my then agent said, well, you should go to LA and see how you can do out there. And then, so that was 78 or 79.
That's still quite a scary move to go, you've hit, I believe your version of success at the time was that if you had joined a big repertoire company.
Yeah, a regional theater company.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Guthrie or the what was that place in Washington, D.C., or Actors Theater, Louisville, or the Long Wharf in New Haven. Any of those companies where I had seen the actors or worked with them in different things. I thought that was the be all and end all. Was to get a gig at Center Stage, it was called, in Washington. It was a dream. It turns out that maybe it wasn't the biggest dream.
So isn't that kind of crazy? No, you go on, sorry.
See, there's no sorry.
I broke my own rule.
You broke your own rule. You're up.
Isn't that kind of crazy where you've got these, you're living your dream, you've got this view of success, you hit it. What does that do? Because for a lot of people, when they realize their dream, sometimes that can be a bit uncomfortable, sad, or frightening. But then there's other people where, they just onto the next thing and onto the next thing. How did you feel? Were you just in this train of I'm doing what I love and that's all that matters? What was the feelings?
That was me for sure. I always felt, I think a lot of us feel like imposter syndrome. Anybody who ever gets hired as an actor, given that there's an 80 or 90% unemployment rate for actors.
Crazy.
It's nuts. Is it that bad where you are as well?
It's probably worse. But I view myself as, with all my writing and stuff, I'm trying to get LA production companies, and very long story short, I almost moved to LA, had a production company interested in the script. So I'm viewing myself with the American lens.
You are. And where do you live now?
Melbourne. Have you been?
Uh, I have not been to Melbourne, which I'm told was the best city in Australia. I worked in
You're correct.
on I worked in a show. It was called 5 Mile Creek that we shot in out in the woods outside of Queen Anne's Hill. Does that ring a bell?
Queensland or
No, not Queensland. The other city in the other big city north of you, Sydney.
I have
It's
no idea where that is.
Sydney, Australia?
No, I know it's. Can you?
Come
I know
on,
it's
dude.
Sydney. Can you imagine? Find out about actually Australia.
He's not really Australian.
Uh,
He's a fraud. He's a Kiwi.
oh no, my horrible truths. No, I didn't know where you said the other place was, but
Oh, Sydney was the other place. Anyway, we digress.
yeah, we were talking about success and imposter syndrome. You know, every actor's spoken about it. Is this going to be the last time I work again? Will they realize, am I going to never work? Will they fire me? All of that. So, how have you navigated that?
I have I've been very fortunate. I went from sort of guest spot to guest spot before I had to ever go out and get another straight job, if you will.
Mm.
I was brought up in a household that supported me with the idea of being an actor instead of trying to deter me, which was massive.
Huge. It still is
I know
now.
one, yeah, it is. And my father, who was an English professor and a book critic and a movie buff and a music buff, and he provided me with a philosophy that I know is on your list of questions
Mm.
of that if you do something that you love, you're not really working,
Oh,
and
that's
that's it.
amazing.
And it's true because he loved what he did. I mean, he taught Hemingway and Faulkner and Joyce and Henry James, and he would reread all the books that he'd read dozens of times before each time each semester that the book came back up. And this is another story you've probably heard, but when he died, I got a lot of his teaching editions of the books, and they were all dog-eared, and they had lots of notes in the.
Oh, nice.
And I remember I think I was in high school, and we had to read Secret of an Artist as Young, and I A Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man, which was by James Joyce. And I said, Dad, I think I'm ready for Ulysses. And he said, Jonathan, you can't handle Ulysses, right? So this was when I was 15 or 16. So he's gone. I'm sitting in his chair, his office chair, and I pulled the Ulysses in my little library up in Maine out of the shelf. Have you heard this story before?
No.
And I opened the Ulysses, and I'm thinking, Dad, I love you. I've watched this. I'm like 55 or 60 years old, and I get about maybe a page and a half into it. I said, yeah, still can't handle Ulysses. And I put it back up on his shelf. Haven't touched the fucking book since, and never will again. He was right then, and he was right now.
That's so funny. Was he just like, he wasn't even trying to like be demeaning. He's just like, no,
No.
I'm telling you, don't tackle
Yeah.
this. Like a
Yeah.
Pandora's box of some sort.
Exactly.
That's hilarious. I love that philosophy. And as you know, you've met thousands of actors. I'm very lucky I've got the support of my family, but it is
Yeah,
rare.
it's massive.
It
It's
changes.
everything. I went to Penn State, which was a state school, obviously, and I wanted to be a shrink, so I went in as a psychiatry major, and I got in there because my dad taught there years before, and I think he pulled some strings because I wanted to take a gap year. Have you heard this story?
No.
Okay, in England and probably in Australia, kids get a gap year between
Yeah,
high
I
school and
took one.
college, which is genius. And my father really supported the idea. My mother, on the other hand, sweet Doris Frakes, thought, no, 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 he's got to go to college. And so I hadn't applied, or I hadn't. So she said, see what you can do. And I ended up getting whatever strings he pulled to get me into Penn State on the main campus, which was a big deal instead of one of those branch campuses. But I started a week after I graduated from high school, reluctantly. And while I was there in that first few weeks of the summer, I went to the theater department because I had dabbled in acting. I loved going to the theater, actually. We used to go to New York. We were about an hour and a half from New York, so we would go in as a family and see shows on Broadway.
Oh,
So,
nice.
and I was signing up because you could get into shows for free if you agreed to be an usher, to help the people. So And the director of this was a production of Arthur Kopit's Indians, which was a show about Wild Bill Hickok and the Wild West shows that used to perform
Yeah.
with Annie Oakley. Anyway, he said, "Hey, you're a tall guy. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm signing up to usher on." He said, "Well, do you know how to play the drums?" I said, "No, I don't really know." "Well, would you like to come into rehearsal and see if you can?" So I went to rehearsal. They gave me a drum, and I sat on the stage as part of this Wild West show, and I was surrounded by people from the Guthrie and Actors Theater Louisville and the center stage, and it was the game changer for me because it was in rep. They had come to Penn State, which is in this beautiful part of our Pennsylvania, and they would rehearse maybe from 10 to 2 or 3 of the play that they were rehearsing, and then they go have a nap, have a late dinner, come back and do their play at night, 7 o'clock for a 7:30 curtain, done by 10 or 10:30, in the bar by 10:30 or 11. It was, and I thought, wait a minute, is this a job?
Wow.
So I then went and changed, my degree, and I got the most useless degree you can get, at least in an American university. It's called a Bachelor's in Fine Arts with a focus in acting, which you cannot probably get a cup of coffee. But but my dad was supportive, my mom was supportive. I was very fortunate that I was castable because I was tall and I was eager and I had a lot of energy and I was hardworking and all that shit. So it was and I needed a master plan when I got to New York because so I said, and this is really stupid. I said, if I don't get acting work in 5 years,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I'll lean on my other talent, playing trombone.
But I've got so many.
which goes back to the beeper story because one of the running jokes among comics always was, what's the definition of an optimist? It's a trombone player with a beeper, which I've always loved.
Oh.
All right, your turn.
Okay, I've got so many questions there. And how awesome is that moment when you realize, this is actually something that you can do? Because a lot of people, we watch TV and go, we'd like to do it, but we don't register that we could maybe potentially do this. Did this just transform your life? Were you just in like heaven and go, wow, I'm seeing the world in a different light? Tell me
do
everything.
what?
When you were doing the play, involved in it.
Oh, just to be involved in the play. Well, that was eye-opening in terms of the lifestyle and the environment and the professionalism and all the things that I had been. And I was a high school student. I was 17, and I was attracted to the magic, if you will.
Oh, so you caught it there and then.
Yeah, and then I was lucky enough to get into some of the master's thesis plays. I did a production of my Three Sisters of Chekhov's, and I had a tiny little part there. So I was one of those undergraduates who was sort of picked to be because when you're in acting class in acting school, they discourage you from being in productions, which really seemed antithetical to me because it seems. And to this day, when I'm asked for advice, I say you got to go out and do it instead of talking about doing it. No, I'm not a big believer in acting theory.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
Yeah.
so many people have said that also with writing. Like I've met so many, and no judgment if you put pen to paper, you're a writer. But so many people are like, "Oh, I'm writing this next script." So I'm like, "Oh, can I see it?" Or "What have you done?" Like, "Oh, I haven't written it." Then like a year later, "Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it." Or stand up.
Yeah.
Putting pen to paper. I'm sure. Would you have seen a lot of that in your time where I want to do acting, I want to do this, and then people are afraid, or you've always been in circles where?
No, I think that people who want to act really go out there and put themselves out there. It just is such an incredibly, I mean, the failure aspect of your podcast is that acting and probably writing to a certain degree are completely unjust. I mean, there's no vertical ladder in acting.
Mm.
In writing, there sort of is because you can. I mean, the writing can either be literate or funny or articulate or thoughtful, or there are a lot of elements that you can recognize aren't there.
Yep.
In bad writing, and in acting, it's a it's a little different because there's some actors you hate the moment you see them. There's some actors who could, as they say, read the telephone book to you and you're mesmerized. So it's such a unpredictable, and I keep using the word unjust when I describe it because you can. I have a dear friend who was a much better actor than I was at Penn State. Went on to New York and did a couple of things, and then said "fuck it" and went to law school, and now he's a judge in Philadelphia, and it's a great
Wow.
job. So it's um it's not for the faint of heart.
And you've spoken about that you've always had a bit of confidence growing up. Where did that resilience come from? Because I'm sure there were moments where you slept on couches, you worked the odd jobs, all of that stuff. It's not easy.
Well, it's not easy, but I've always been optimistic. I've always felt very blessed. I've been healthy, and I've had, I came from a good family. We never felt like we were starving, even though you're living off a teacher's salary. And it was, and the older I get, the more I appreciate how fortunate I am, because every family is fucked up in a certain way, and ours was just less fucked up than some.
I love that. Yeah, I also see it the same way.
See, now I'm glad I let the video on.
Yeah. Oh, you are?
See?
I was like, uh, okay. And in terms of I call it the non-linear aspect, sometimes you're the star of one show and then it's harder to get work later on, or there's just, you think you're going to get a role, you're not going to get a role, or production doesn't happen. How do you deal with the volatility of the business?
God, I don't really have a good answer for that. I think you've got to roll with it. I think you've got to maintain some semblance of separation between your personal well-being, and you can't identify I mean, I'm sure you've seen it too. There's people who really identify as being, dare I say, an artist or whatever that word is, a craftsman, and as opposed to trying to hold on to what their core. I do find that there's I'm much happier as a director where you have um, when you're hired for a job, you're involved in every aspect of it for the entire length of the episode or of the movie or whatever it is. In a way, for a person like me who likes to be involved, I love to be front of the camera and behind the camera, and I like the technicians, and I like the production designer, I like the costume designer, I like the makeup and hair and cost. I like the family,
Oh, that's great.
and that's why I'm happier and I think better at directing than I ever was as an actor.
Okay. I want to get into directing. I've got 100 questions. I want to tie up these things because otherwise I'll
Okay.
go in circles. You mentioned kind of the self-worth aspect of an actor or creative. I've seen it. I think I'd had it for a period. Long story short, one aspect where my self-worth was kind of broken. I'm grateful for this experience. When I first did improv, I failed an improv class, which was actually quite common, but I took that so personally. And this
How
was
did you know, how do you fail? You
their
flunked?
classes. You just don't go to the next level.
Oh, you weren't invited into the next class?
Oh, they just say you need to redo whatever level
Ooh.
you're on. And it
Ooh.
was tough. Actually, it was extremely tough at the time. It was at this place, they take it very seriously. I think a lot of the people that end up making it, they ended up failing. But anyway, not to take away from my experience. And
bitter table for one, please.
I was really, you make excuses for like I like recovered within like a few days, but I was upset. I was like,
Clearly you haven't. Come on, Michael.
no, I think it was a great experience.
No, but clearly you haven't recovered.
Oh, from the
The trauma
Okay,
of not being moved to the next level in improv class.
I ended up getting to the next level, so I'm grateful for it.
It burned in your soul.
It burned, it hurt. I was really upset because I was like, I'm the funny guy. This is who I am. I can't believe they didn't agree with my humor. It was this comment, blah, 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 all of that. But I quickly realized that even though I'm a brilliant improviser, no, I'm joking. I realized that there was stuff I needed to work on. I needed to look at my identity. And it was a real mindset shift into how I see myself. And I am so grateful for that because it made me become a better partner in terms of how to collaborate with people.
Right.
Hopefully put my ego a little bit more to the side. And I was so grateful for that experience, even if it appears that I'm not. But that was really
No, but were
important.
you grateful within days, hours, weeks?
No, I got over a lot within a week. I was meditating every day on
Oh,
it. And I was
that's
very quick in
fantastic.
that regard. I was obviously upset. I wasn't like woke up one day like it's sunshine and rainbows, but
No, but you sound evolved and mentally healthy.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But it was a big kick up the gut. Like I didn't scream or yell or anything. It was just I internalized it. I meditated. I sat with it, and I'm so happy for that experience. And it also allowed me to work on self worth. And as you alluded to with self worth, we can attach ourselves to being a creative and doing all of that other
Oof,
stuff.
very
So
dangerous.
yeah. So has that been an issue for you? You've always been Jonathan. Have you had outside things that you've been interested in, or have you realized that it's not necessarily who you are?
Very early on, I was fortunate to have an agent who found me when I was doing Three Penny and miscellaneous plays, who represented a friend of mine for whom I worked, who took me on as a commercial client in New York and used to send me out on commercials, which I had almost no luck with. I mean, I would sometimes go out, without exaggerating, 20 times a week, maybe. And I
Wow.
would I would go on hundreds of commercial auditions until I booked one, and then I'd go for hundreds more. And her theory was that, and that feel horrible because I
Mm.
thought, how hard could it be to get a fucking commercial? But her theory, and which I practice to this day with all auditions and interviews, is that when you get to the bottom of the building and you go out the door, you psychologically, physically visualize leaving whatever happened in the behind the door of the building and in where that was. And to a certain degree, that has worked with me for me. I mean, it's theory and it's bullshit, but it is visualization that has really stuck with me. And
I
I've
love that.
shared it as I just shared it with you. And it's simple and it may or may not work, but I do it.
I'm huge on visualization stuff like that. Anything where like emotionally you can kind of move forward and say
Yeah.
goodbye. It works if you're allowed to. It's just
Yeah,
it's a belief thing.
exactly. Like I wake up in the morning and I don't get out of bed until I go through my sort of gratefulness list. And I think
Yes.
that has been, I didn't always do that, but I don't do it. I don't get out of bed without doing it now.
Why did you incorporate that? I love this.
I think it came, I started to meditate. I heard you mention meditating twice. I literally old school, um, breathing meditation like TM, like from the 70s at lunch at work when I'm directing. And that's part of the deal. They say, oh, Frakes has to have a room in the honey wagons because he meditates at lunch. And
Cool.
the truth is, sometimes I meditate and I see my third eye, and sometimes it's just a nap.
Yeah.
But the best part of it is that I've learned this. Not only do I, it's got two good parts to it. One is that if I do meditate and I harmonic breathe and I breathe and hum and I do a whole thing.
Yep.
When I come out and I say I have somebody, the second or the third AD, wake me up about 5 minutes before we're back on set, and I have either a tuna sandwich or a turkey. I have a little protein, and I go back to work. On the set, at least in the old days, it was people had massive lunches
Yep.
and they had all kinds of food. And by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the whole crew would go into a fucking meat coma, right?
Yep.
And I was able to carry a lot of that through and get them onto the last couple of hours of the show. So that was a plus. The
Oh, that's
other
great.
plus was that when it became part of my routine, nobody could schedule me for lunch meetings. Oh, wait, let's get, no, we'll talk to Frakes at lunch about that thing. We'll have a quick meeting with Frakes at lunch. And that has paid off in spades.
That's so funny. You don't even need to meditate. Just say you're getting all the
I
benefits
know
of
it.
meditate.
And you go in and close the door, and it's like, yeah, that's Frakes. He says he's meditating. I say, well, sometimes I fucking meditate, and sometimes I'm napping, and sometimes I'm avoiding a meeting about the color of that dress in the next scene.
Oh my God, that's the best take on meditation we've ever had. And how did you discover it? Was it just, actors are doing it? Did you find you needed to implement it, or was it a cool thing that people were doing?
I think we did it in college. TM was a big thing in college. I remember, you
What?
got stoned and you meditated, and it was so, but I had forgotten and lost interest. And so I don't remember who, but I remember when I started, it was when I was directing, I did it. So it was years ago. And in the last 15 years or so, it's been every day of, you can't do it when you're in prep because you're scheduled all day. But when you're shooting, when you're sort of a little more in control, you can, because they do have to break for lunch.
Yep.
And there is that chance. And it's been invaluable. And a lot of people who I share this with have tried it. Jaded. I have a writer friend who's a writer director who has embraced it so much. And every time he sees me, he thanks me. And I don't know. It's another part. I also take a handful of vitamins in the morning that somebody recommended to me one time. And whether they work or not, I don't know. But I take those.
Take the gulp.
I do. And then I put the B12 sublingual under my tongue until that melts. And then I get on with my day. So I have routines that they're like placebos. They either work or they don't. But if I don't do them, I'll miss them.
Exactly. And it's all about beliefs. Meditation, and I'm glad you bring this up because you'll understand. Meditation being a game changer for me. I do it before. Yeah. I do it every morning. When I'm meditating throughout the day, which isn't as common, I'm pulling up a number between 3 to 5 scripts. No, maybe more scripts purely from meditation. It's like changed my life. And I'll just close my eyes, get like a summary. I've been writing this movie for a while, purely from meditation. Concepts. I know it sounds ridiculous. Everyone can do this.
Not
Everyone
at all.
has this power. And I wrote this movie. It's not me. Like, I'm so grateful for whatever happened. And that's often how I write, is through meditation. But every time I force it, it won't happen. But yeah.
Yeah. So when you meditate and you don't know you're meditating on what you want to write, but you end up meditating and then you write after you're done?
No. So if it's something like where a genius, or my version of a genius idea comes through, I'm meditating, right, and I often have a pen and paper somewhere. I'll just quickly, with my eyes closed, jolt down some stuff or get
no kidding. Keywords.
Yeah.
It's like remembering your dreams.
Exactly. I do have a dream journal, but I've been too slack with that. But that's really important. More times than not, I don't write because sometimes you can get out of it. But if you're doing that like free-flowing writing, I'm still in it. And like that to me just shows, I'm also an optimist. That just shows me if that's capable, what else is capable? And this is at such a tiny little level. Like, look what's on that piece of paper. And everyone's like, oh, that's such a good scene. I'm like, I didn't write it. That wasn't me. I don't know who it was. The actual Michael's the writer probably can't do that. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think
that's fabulous.
Yeah. Well, you incorporate.
It's obviously been around for centuries or thousands of years. I mean, it's a thing.
Yeah. And
it's like acupuncture.
Yeah.
Get it done and say, oh, they know that worked. What do you mean that worked? Well, of course it worked. They've been doing it for fucking centuries.
Agreed. I actually got acupuncture yesterday and I feel great. So good time.
See, I knew we were going to click if once you let me use my video.
Do I need to give context or just leave that? I'll leave that vague for everyone. And do you apply meditation outside of directing as well? I know we got the gratitude list, which is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah, that's a version. I think it's a good version of it. Oh, I know what I do. I will use some of that breathing to go back to sleep. If I wake up in the middle of the night to pee, as you do when you get older, you'll see in about 20, now. 30 years. Yeah. So to go back to sleep more quickly, I will do some of my harmonic breathing.
That's awesome. You've given a lot of tools for people. And then I want to go back in now. There's so many questions on directing. You mentioned that you were a better director than you ever were actor. That's a big call because you've done a lot of acting as well. When did you kind of come to?
I've done a lot of acting, but not all of it good. They haven't all been winners.
Go on.
I've worked with a lot of wonderful actors, And I'm a big believer that you get better. I mean, I worked with Sir Patrick Stewart for 37 years, and I had a lot of scenes with Patrick. And have you watched Picard? Have you watched any
Mm,
of, yeah,
yeah.
season 3 of Picard? Acting with him again was such a joy. And, like Todd Stashwick, who plays the bad captain, he became an instant friend of mine because of acting with him. And we became just thick as thieves ever since.
He was on a year or so ago. Great
On
guy.
this,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a wonderful guy.
Mm,
He's a Second City improv guy.
yeah.
My point, though, I think my point was that you do get better if it's like that whole tennis player analogy that people use. If you play with a better tennis player, you get better.
I'm sure you've been with some wonderful people and it would elevate your experience as well and see how they prepare, how they get into it. Just it would transform everything, especially just those two actors of many brilliant actors you've had as well.
Yeah,
Kind of forces, you can't really muck around when you're acting, you know,
yeah.
with them as well.
Well, one of the things that I'm sure you've heard the reputation that we had as our family, we were quite rambunctious and some would say disrespectful and loud and obnoxious and entitled and ridiculous. Our behavior, especially after Patrick realized that he was an American, was it was unspeakably childish. And the reason I'm convinced is that Patrick had set such a high bar in preparation that you didn't dare come to work without knowing your lines, as people do on other shows. I've seen it for years. People are sitting, they get in the makeup trailer, said, anybody got a script? I said, what? Are you fucking kidding me?
That blows my mind.
And it happens all the time.
Still.
Yes, all the time. Less
Okay.
so with old pros, but kids. And so that bar was set. So you never, and my dear friend Noah Wiley, who's now having this great success on The Pit. Have you seen that show yet?
No.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I haven't. But
it's brilliant. He used to be on ER, and we did all the Librarians movies together, and we did a series together called The Librarians. And he's another actor who's so facile, and he shows up. He never has sides in his hands, and if you're working with him, you don't show up with sides. And Patrick was that way, and therefore, everybody who came to work in the morning on our show, all the regulars, were prepared. So what does that allow you to do during the lighting setups? But fuck around and drink coffee and be silly and loud and sing and drive the director crazy.
I'm sure as a director, you've probably seen it all as well. How do
Well,
you?
then when I became a director of my show, and I thought, oh my God, I get it, and I'm at least as guilty as anyone. My behavior, as you can probably tell,
Yep.
is it was it was so eye opening, and I thought, oh God, no wonder these directors have gone to the producer and said, I can't handle them. They're out of their minds. They're insane.
I've heard from many people also in the Star Trek world that said that you're their favorite director and you're as you say, an actor's director as well. So I'm sure that you're able to, play with it and not take it on and,
Yeah,
come in with ease.
it should be fun. I mean, I mean, all those cliches about not curing cancer are really true. We're making entertainment. We're supposed to be.
Mm.
We're lucky to be there.
I don't think it's very empowering for me to hear, and I'm sure other people feel the same way when you talk about gratitude and still being on set. That is a very rare attitude. You do see a lot of people that have been doing anything for a while. They're like, oh, got another day, and maybe you like that for small parts, but you genuinely are grateful to be, a part of this world and do your directing and acting and all of that stuff. That's a rare trait. I know we spoke about, having a good upbringing, but where does that come from? You could have just given up.
Yeah, but do you find that there are actors who are not grateful to be working?
I think they're great. Some might be, not on this podcast, but what I've heard, grateful to get a job, but then when they're there, oh, this is so hard, or, all the human emotions that we have.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's rare in experienced actors to because you can't take it for granted. And
Mm.
the older you are, you realize how blessed you are to have a gig. But on the other side of the coin are the influx of people who and I had a conversation with I mentor one of the MFA candidates at at USC every year, and I had my lunch with the new one just before I got on with you, and I was talking about how young people, crew members, actors, anybody in our business have some of them have not been taught simple ways to respect the craft that you're in, and I don't know if that's a job for somebody to tell them you have to show up on the set when you're called and you can't you like on our show you would never be the last one to the set. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just I mean, I hate to sound like this guy, but it's simply not done. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree. But also,
Yeah.
sorry for interjecting, but like what you said in Star Trek, it was set number one on the call sheet, set
Yep.
standard. So that's
Yeah.
also,
Yeah. On every show I go into as a director, I have a sort of a technique. If I go during prep and I try to sneak onto the set and hang out in a little bit, and because you can feel whose set it is, it's either number one or sometimes it's the cinematographer, sometimes it's the first AD, or sometimes it's the writing producer. But it's one of those characters is really the person whose set
yep.
you're on. And if you know that before you start this is when I come into a new show. If you know that before you start, you don't try to reinvent the wheel. You bend to whatever their weird wishes may be. You know who you have to please. All those people managing techniques. If you can get ahead of the curve, and I had on Discovery, and now he's on all the shows. This key grip who I'm crazy about, named Bob DePrato, who's my age and has been doing it forever. The first day I went in to prep on Discovery, which was the first of those new Star Treks, Discovery. I was doing my thing, and then I sat down, and I happened to sit next to Bob, and I could feel like it was a kindred spirit. And I told him what I was doing. He said, "Well, it's Soneqa's show. It's number one." And she was a spiritual leader, a philosophical leader.
Cool.
She was a talent. She was, it was the best kind of number one, like Noah and Patrick. And if that's the case, and you know that, you breathe.
Yes, it would be more bliss. And then from what we were saying before, maybe it's the younger generation, maybe it's just, role models, all of that stuff. But you have this gratitude outlook. What inspires you and motivates you to continue? Because you've had a wonderful career. You could just pack it up. Like, what gets you out of bed?
Yeah, but what to do? What would I go do?
I don't know. A lot of people you see, they've done the thing.
I fish and I play golf and I swim and I travel, but I don't do any of them well enough or long enough to not go to work and sing, bad musical comedy songs on the set.
And has the fire changed, or has it just evolved in a different way?
Well, let's be frank, it's not a great time to be an old white guy in show business. So there are fewer jobs as there are. The streaming services cut down the orders. So shows are often 6 episodes or 10 episodes.
Yeah.
As opposed to 26. Then it went to 22. Then it went to 18. And now they're literally a season of a show is 10 episodes. So if you get one slot on that show, you got to get another show. It's a different game.
Yeah.
The stakes are the same and the energy is the same, but I would never be asked to do 11 episodes a year again because it takes over a month of an episode, so you're working constantly.
Oh,
Unless you're
interesting.
doing when you're doing a movie, it takes everything from you, and it's 24/7. As it is when one of the advantages of shooting on location, at least for me, is that if I know Chidi and the kids are well, all you think about is the show.
Yep.
So you're thinking about the show on the weekend. You're happy to have another meeting on that. And you're happy to go and get to rehearse on Sunday if the cast is willing. You're there to make the show because you're out of town or you're living in a hotel. So it's all about the show.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the only upsides of the fact that show business seems to have left Los Angeles. Everything's in Vancouver, Toronto, Atlanta, New Orleans,
Even
New
in
York.
Australia, we're getting a lot of like Marvel films.
I know.
Yeah, a lot of the Superman actor, what's his name, David Corenswet, he's in a movie that's coming out eventually. He was filmed in Melbourne. I saw him when he was here. Well, I just looked at him. I didn't say hi or anything. But I was like, this massive movie's being made in Melbourne. It blows my mind. LA might not be the hub for much longer.
Yeah, but hasn't there always been good, healthy film business in Australia?
They have, but I'm noticing like bigger productions. Like every movie that I'm going to the cinemas, and I see a lot of movies, you always see like Screen Victoria or Screen Queensland giving grants. Like, how the hell is that? Why is our government giving grants? I don't understand. It must be for like tax purposes. It blows my mind.
Oh, that's why Canada, the tax incentive in Canada, I'm told, lowers the budget by 30%. It's massive.
Okay, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The bad accountant in me would even be able to.
Exactly. Even the bad accountant understands that.
Hi, it's me, Michael here. While you're here, the best way to grow and develop a podcast is through word of mouth. If you like this episode, please tell your mates or share it around. Lastly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other awesome episodes. Otherwise, let's get back into it.
Ed, I've got a few more questions on directing as well, because you've directed heaps of things as well. But I feel like this is important and it ties into your outlook on life and your positive mindset.
Are you going to talk about the failure of the Thunderbirds now?
I want to see if we can change. Yes, but I'm going to see if we can change the word failure, because I've done a lot
it's in the name of the fucking podcast.
Yes, but how you see this experience, we're going to see if we can change it.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll just give a little bit of a synopsis. You mentioned that you were put in movie jail after this. I said that I'm having you on the podcast. Hundreds of people have messaged me questions, and a lot of them were just comments saying that they love Thunderbirds. And I think that's important to say, because I don't know about you, how they view a success of a movie blows my mind. Just week one at the box office. That seems very bizarre.
Well, and also, I mean, Thunderbirds was made to be a little spring kids movie, and something happened at Universal. They said, well, let's put it out in the summer. It came out opposite Spider-Man and Shrek, so we didn't have a prayer. So yeah, because it's a wonderful movie. I agree. Yeah.
So can you tell me, at that moment you get, I believe, I don't know, after Star Trek, wonderful career directing, you get this opportunity. I think you believe at the time like your life's going to change even further in terms from the directing space. It
Absolutely.
doesn't go to plan. Mentally, you said it was very difficult for you. And I've got a quote, so it's not just, I can't find it at the moment, but you said you were a baby about it. You moved to Maine, very tough. Mentally, what has helped you move forward?
I went to Maine and licked my wounds is probably what I said.
Yeah.
And because our house was rented here, and we put the kids in school in Maine, and I was feeling sorry for myself. And Jeannie opened a store. I mean, she had quit her job to come with me to London, and the kids started school in London, in two different schools. So we were there for almost 4 years. So then when we moved to Maine, which we all loved, there was no work for Jeannie and me. So she opened a wonderful, beautiful store, and I was teaching at some local arts center, and feeling sorry for myself. And then Dean Devlin, who I'd known for years, called and asked me, he said, any way that I could get you to go to Africa and direct this Librarians movie with Noah Wiley? I said, yeah, I think I could do that for you, Dean. That would be great. And so he put me back in the director's chair, and I haven't been asked to do a movie since. But I also came to TV's the kind of the leader of the pack now, anyway. In many ways, unless you're doing a Marvel movie or a big tentpole movie.
Okay, I've got even more questions. And in terms of, how was the pressure from when you moved to Africa to film the Librarians? What was that like? Because I'm sure mentally you were probably, which is normal, playing all these games. I could have done that. I could have done that. Was the confidence shaken, or once you got on set, you let it go?
I think once I got it was so exciting to be over there. And it was we had a great script, great cast. It was, I'd never been to Africa. It was, except to shoot on the Seychelles, which we did for Thunderbirds, but I'd never been. We went to Cedarburg, and we were shooting in Kenya, and we shot in the mountains. It was everything about it was wonderful. And Dean gave me free rein because he was busy doing something else. I remember calling him because we happened upon the Maasai village when we were scouting. And I said, what about if Noah and Gabrielle are actually walking through the Maasai village instead of this weird part of the jungle? And we could, what if we can get to shoot here? He said, whatever you want to do. So we took the script and twisted it on its head and moved some scenes in there, and it opened up so it was that kind of um, trust that I had from Dean that allowed me to get back in the groove.
Oh,
So I
that's
was,
amazing. Having a good
yeah,
collaboration.
because he and I had this very similar taste. We like action adventure comedy. He's the guy who made Independence Day. He's a and Stargate, and that's his world.
Oh, that's amazing. And what did you learn about yourself when you were in Maine?
Well, Maine was where we all wanted to be, so it was very comforting. We had taken a vacation there at the recommendation of a friend of mine who was a casting director. He said, "Why do you guys go to Hawaii? Why don't you try Maine?" And we got there late, and we were not able to get a great place to rent. And my beautiful wife has a real estate problem, so she said, "Why don't we look at a couple places up here?" And we did. And the kids were 2 and 4, and we snuck back to one of them at night with the kids, and the moon was out, and anyway, the place was called Windy Oaks, and they ran across the lawn, and she had a job, and I had a job, and the price was seemed ridiculous for this much. I said, "What do you think?" She said, "What do you think?" I said, "So let's do it." And it was 1999, and we bought this wonderful home that the kids still think of themselves as Mainers
Oh,
because
nice.
yeah, so it's arguably the best thing we ever did, certainly as a for the family. So it's our we go there every chance we get. We're going on back on Tuesday for another month, so it's magic.
I don't know if you know this gentleman, Xander Berkeley, and his wife, Sarah Clark.
Xander, I listened to Xander. He moved to Maine.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he's
he's a
still
friend
there.
of. Yeah, he's a friend. He is still there. He has a farm up outside of Portland.
Mm,
He's a wonderful actor
yeah.
and a wonderful guy, I think he's a painter as well.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
sculpture painter. He does make. He
yeah.
can also do makeup. He's a man of actually like got many skills.
Well, I punched through your list, and he was the other name besides Deacon that I recognized.
Ah, and you were saying that you're a big fan of Deechin and you worked with her on
Yeah.
Dollhouse, which is great. You know, most people don't even realize she's Australian, so I'm telling the world now she's
Oh,
Australian.
because
Very
they know her only from Severance.
Dollhouse. I can't remember everyone's credits, but wasn't she on The
No, no, I'm saying,
Hundred?
but people think of her as being from Severance.
Yeah, now, but there's also I think Dollhouse, Animal Kingdom,
Yeah.
Carbon,
Oh,
Altered.
yeah.
I'm surprised I know that. So people give if I got something wrong, that's impressive. And going when you first moved to Maine and you said you're licking your wounds, if you could go back into a time now, it's seen your career, do you think you would have believed that you'd have a career like this? Because movie jail at that time is apparently a thing.
Oh, I think it is still a thing.
Yeah.
I think the rules are that if a movie fails, it's the director's fault, and if a TV show fails, it's the writers or the producer's fault. I don't you think that's probably the
Yeah, I've heard
takeaway?
something like that, but it's
Yeah,
obviously more than just
I
that.
think it's
So
obviously deeper than that,
yeah.
but um, so the timing of my alleged failure, which we won't call a failure,
Yeah.
was great because TV doesn't take as much of your soul. I mean, you can do a bad episode of a bad television show, and it's still only going to be a month of your life.
Yeah.
But if you're on a movie for I mean, a big action adventure movie with a lot of visual effects, as Thunderbirds was, that was a good 3 years. And for that to go away in the first weekend, it was a big reality show. I mean, it's happened to everyone who's done this,
Mm.
but it was because we had envisioned, oh, this will go, and then the kids really love it here, and we'll stay in England, and it was a whole we had just like you described. We believed it was a game changer, but it wasn't, and the way it has worked out has been wonderful.
And so do you think you would have been surprised after, maybe week two or week three when you perhaps think your career's over, seeing what you've been able to do since then? Do you think you would have been able to, believe it? Would you be surprised?
I don't think I would have believed it in the first week, but like you, recovering from the improv class, I think by the second or third week, I was
Ah,
ready to go. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's a rare outlook. A lot of people when they think they've done like a bad job in something, it's game over. But that's awesome.
Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know how real movie jail was, and my directing career went into movies because I had done the Star Trek show for so many years.
Yep.
Then I did two Star Trek movies. Then I did another Paramount movie called Clock Stoppers, which made money but didn't cost a lot of money. So my fourth movie, which cost a lot of money, didn't make any money, and that's the recipe for movie jail.
What's really interesting, and I want to hear the view of success on that, but just so people know, you worked really hard to get into directing. I think you did over 300 hours of editing. You came in on your days off. You shadowed for close to 3 years or maybe
Close to
3 years,
3 years, yeah, yeah.
which I really want to paint this picture because you're at Star Trek. That's a huge show. You can just go, oh, I'm going to do this acting thing for the rest of my life. Like you could have just, reined it in a sense, but you really had that determination. Where did that passion come from to, you're working plus doing all of that other stuff? Where did that come from?
Well, on TV sets, on any set, I think Robert Mitchum is given credit for the great line. They pay me to wait. I act for free. There's a lot of downtime,
Yep. Yep.
and you can only take so many naps. Brent Spiner is a great napper, but so I would go back on the set and hang out, and it was clear to me that the center of the of the factory is where the director is,
Mm.
and I liked that. And I thought, and I asked Rick Berman, who was running all things Star Trek at that point, and he said, "Well, you're going to have to go to what became known as Paramount University because we were on the lot, so we had the advantage of." So I stayed, I shadowed all the different directors, and then I was invited into the pre-production meetings and the visual effects meetings, and then the wonderful scoring sessions, and then the the 300 hours in the editing room was with, to be fair, editors who really also wanted to be directors, who were generous enough with their time to share their talent, to teach me the most important thing about television, which is if you're in trouble, here's what you need to get out. You can get, if you only have an hour left, you can get that scene in two or three setups. And that tool has bailed me out many times.
Oh, great. But also, I believe that you're almost being tested by sense by the producers as well. They were almost waiting for you to not want to direct or to
Well, that was Jeannie's theory that one day I was living in her house in Tarzana, and I said, "You know what? I don't think I'll go in today." And she said, "That's Rick. Rick is waiting for that, for you to show any chink in your armor." And so I got in the car, drove over to Paramount, and did whatever. And ultimately, he relented. And by the time I got an episode, again, because I'm so fortunate, it was a Data episode, which are almost always great. It was written by a new writer named Renee Echevarria, who had submitted this as his spec script, who went on to be the producing director on Castle and other shows.
Wow.
So it was a great script. I had this, obviously, the support of the company, who knew what, I mean, the sound department gave me a megaphone like from the 50s the directors used to use. I was ready. That's the short answer. By the time I got an episode, I was ready to do an episode.
I heard you were very well prepared, and that's great to hear. And also, just as I said, the drive to keep on going. There could have been days off. You could have been like, I don't want to do this, or it's too hard, but you did it. And it may have been challenging or time consuming, but you've reaped the rewards.
It was time consuming, but it was really the best thing I could have done because I got to. The more you know, the more familiar you are. And I also, we were talking about an hour ago, I really like all parts of the storytelling. I hate to use that term. The Smartless guys have turned me off that term. I like the pre-production. I like the meetings with all the designers and discussing this and that. And I love being on the set with the cinematographer. If you trust the cinematographer, they just make your life glorious,
You've got a great outlook.
Thank you.
I love it. It's refreshing. It's empowering for me. Last question before we get into the rapid fire segment. I want to just mention Star Trek Picard, especially season 3. I don't normally talk about like the ins and outs of like each show and movies, but Star Trek Picard season 3 was unbelievable. I hadn't watched that much Star Trek at the time. I didn't get all the references, but I thought that was top tier. That was a top tier production. Everything. That was incredible. I recommend it to so many of my friends that have never seen Star Trek before.
I do the same thing. I say go to Picard season 3, and most of the credit I think goes to Terry Matalas, who had worked as a PA on our show and on Voyager and stuff, and came up, and then he was sharing the responsibility on Star Trek Picard with Akiva Goldsman, and Akiva took season 2, and Terry took season 3, and then by that point Patrick had changed his idea about wanting to Picard to be only Picard, and sort of letting some of us back in. And when he was convinced that it was going to be okay to have his old family around him, Picard season 3 became like Next Generation season 8, and Terry met with us individually and talked about our characters. It was been 20 years since we'd all been together, so it was the writing. It goes back to the if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. So I mean, we were wonderful in it, and it was a great show, and it was beautiful, but it was the writing for sure.
Phenomenal. The intensity, the tone, it made me actually feel something because with so many shows, it's good, but it's lacking like soul. That show, phenomenal.
My wife said that all the returns of all the characters were earned because they were leading to how to take down Amanda Plummer's character. I mean, there was a goal, and everybody who came in contributed their piece of how to get to the end of the season.
Yeah, I aspire to write something like that. And you hadn't played the character for a while. What was that feeling?
Well,
like?
I had been in season 1, and I felt rusty.
Yeah.
So I was happy.
And we mentioned the nerves. I know your wife would have helped you with lines because you were in every episode and you directed as well. That would have been.
Yeah. My wife's theory is that she told me this about First Contact. She said, I really thought you were so relaxed in First Contact. And she said, I'm convinced it was because you were so exhausted from directing that you weren't watching yourself, and and I think she was accurate.
Cool. Okay, that's just such a good show. I'm so happy that it came out the way it did. Last question on that. Did you know that it would be, when you were filming it and directing it, did you realize that it would be the masterpiece it is? Can you tell in the moment?
I don't know if I would dare use the word masterpiece, but we could tell it was, certainly for my character, it was as good as any Riker's episodes I'd ever had. So in that respect, I felt very confident that we were in a good place.
That's awesome.
That's a dangerous word, masterpiece.
I thought it was. As I said, I've watched a lot. I aspire to write something like that, even half as good, to have all those elements, especially, intensity and feeling something. It's rare. Are you ready to do a rapid fire segment?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay, cool.
All right, here we go.
Okay, I'm going to do some of the quick there are a lot of fan questions. I couldn't go through all of them. Some of them were hilarious. Some of them, I'm not saying. Jonathan, what's your skincare routine? Because you've aged like fine wine.
Moisturizer. My wife insists.
Best thing about being part of the Star Trek universe?
The gift that keeps on giving between the conventions and other shows.
Any plans to direct a Star Trek movie?
Come on. Are they going to make any more Star Trek movies?
Isn't there one being...
Well, they talk. I mean, remember Tarantino was supposed to do one, and Noah Hawley was supposed to do one. And now I understand with the Ellisons that they're going to try to get the reboot of JJ's movies, which were fabulous. So it wouldn't be me, though. I don't think. I'd love to do it, but I don't think that'll be me.
Favorite person to collaborate with?
My wife.
Oh, that's a great answer. I'll send that to her. How was working on Strange New Worlds?
Fabulous. I got 2 of the best episodes. There's a crossover episode with the characters from Lower Decks, so there was animated. That's where we talked earlier about the improv, and the one that just aired, the murder mystery, was arguably the best episode of TV I'd ever gotten to be part of. So, and I had worked with Rebecca on 3 different shows. Anson and Ethan came from Discovery. That show was a spinoff from Discovery. So I like it over there.
Good to hear.
Have you pitched many Riker shows in your time or movies?
No.
Oh, how come?
Riker shows?
Yeah,
Captain Riker?
yeah.
Nah.
I'm surprised to hear that. That came up a lot.
Really?
Yeah. Who was the best singer on Star Trek?
Brent. He's a real tenor, a real Broadway tenor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Can you still do the Riker maneuver?
absolutely. You have to measure the height of the chair. That's the secret to the Riker. You don't want to hurt your junk, but if you place yourself properly and do you do the Riker maneuver? Have you done the Riker maneuver?
No.
Okay, good. You will now.
Someone wrote, but I don't have it here. Did you know that there's a 90% chance of impregnating a alien if you do the Riker maneuver? And I thought that was the funniest question.
I didn't hear that. On Risa, maybe.
Who was the most enlightened person on Star Trek?
LeVar.
Why did you and Marina decide to play with romantic subtext despite the producers going different directions?
We thought that the characters were introduced as having been in love, and the idea that they wanted to send our characters to be available to other alien relationships, including her ridiculous run with Worf, which I won't even go into. Um, we thought that would inform or help inform our performances, and I think we were right. That we're always she like my wife makes you better when you act with her, and she's one of those. So and Picard, the scenes that I had with her in Picard were spectacular because she raises up my game, and that was still, and ironically, our characters on Picard had been estranged because of the death of our mysterious child and Nepenthe. So I think it was a very good call on our part. And then, ironically, in one of those movies, I think it was in Nemesis, we ended up getting married, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because of the choice you made. That's crazy. I'm just going to ask my last three.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to all the fans. There were way too many to go through. What's your next big dream or goal?
I got to get to Maine and catch some fish and do some swimming in the bay and play a little golf with my old friends and eat some lobster rolls.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Right?
What would you do if you knew you cannot fail?
Oh, I would continue. I would continue to do what I do and help my kids as much as I can and stay healthy. And I'm very, I don't know, that's an interesting question. Failure doesn't scare me as much as it did when I was a kid. I'm sure that must be a running answer for a lot of people. I mean, it's part of life, and you got to let it go. Like you have a very philosophical approach to it. I can tell, and you can't let it ruin your day. Maybe your day, but not your week.
That's a great take. Before I ask the last question, I believe you've been involved in charity work. Can you just tell us how we can get involved and what it is?
Yes, PanCan is my brother died at 41 of pancreatic cancer. It was horrific. He had turned yellow, had jaundice, so we took him to the hospital and they opened him up with what they call the Whipple, which is how the pancreatic cancer operation starts. And they looked and they said, it's inoperable. And they closed him and he said he has 6 months to live. And he died 4 or 5 months later. He was 41. So, and our dear friend, Kitty Swink, who's married to Armin Shimmerman, who plays Quark on our show and then again on Deep Space. Kitty is a 21-year pancreatic cancer survivor. So I joined her team, which is now called Team Trek, and we are part of this Purple Stride where we raise money. So Team Trek at pancan.org is what I put a lot of energy in with Armin and Kitty and John Billingsley and Juan Cotto, whose brother Manny Cotto was the writer on Enterprise. So it's a little Star Trek team that raises as much money as we can for research because we need markers to find out about this fucking disease before it kills more people.
Thank you. That's in the episode notes below so people can check out. I'll put the link in there.
Good.
Before we go and I ask how people can follow and keep up to date with you, what is the one question I should have asked you?
Oh, you know what? I wish you hadn't said that.
How come?
You've been wonderful. I thought you have covered it beautifully, and you're easy to roll with. And I've done a lot of these, so I really appreciate the way you've handled this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
I got out of the dreaded X. I occasionally post on Instagram, but as Brent Spiner says, you're the only person who posts about baseball on Instagram. So that's where it is.
Okay, I'll put that also in the episode notes below. Thank you. I appreciate your time. You're very empowering, inspiring, and yeah, I love your mindset, and I appreciate you talking about gratitude and all of that wonderful stuff.
Thank you, Michael. Been a real pleasure.
I love how Jonathan talks about how he's not scared of failure anymore. This really speaks to me because often in life when we experience challenges, we can allow the event to define us. Jonathan reflects on how being in movie jail was no easy task. However, instead of letting it impact him further or giving up, Jonathan still put his hand up and continued to do what he loves. I love this because it shows us that although life may have other plans for us, we are not defined by our so-called failures, but rather use that experience to grow and continue doing what we love best. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. It is impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you have failed by default. J.K. Rowling. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.